When Shaquille O'Neal visited Lagos, Nigeria for a business deal, he stumbled upon a heartbreaking sight, a pregnant woman hawking oranges with her toddler clinging to her back. What happened in the next few minutes would change her life forever. It all started when Big Shaq touched down in Lagos, Nigeria, for a business meeting. Lagos, the beating heart of Africa's most vibrant nation. The streets buzzed with life, the sound of hawkers shouting their prices, danfos weaving through traffic like they owned the roads, and music spilling from every corner. Shaq had visited many cities around the world, but Lagos felt different. It wasn't just the energy, it was the soul of the place. The city was alive, breathing, pulsating with ambition and struggle. Tunde, his driver, had been giving him a tour, pointing out landmarks like Lekki Bridge, the bustling Balogun Market, and the beautiful coastline of Victoria Island. But in the middle of all that chaos, Shaq saw her, a young woman, pregnant. She was walking barefoot under the scorching Nigerian sun, each step more painful than the last. She balanced a tray of oranges on her head, and strapped to her back was a little boy, no older than 2. His small body was drenched in sweat, his bare chest exposed to the relentless heat, and his tired eyes spoke of a struggle no child should ever know. Shaq couldn't look away. Who was she? Why was she out here risking everything? Shaq leaned forward in his seat, eyes locked on the woman as she approached car after car, hoping to sell even a single orange. "Bruv, stop the car." His driver, Tunde, glanced back, confused. "Here? In this traffic?" But Shaq wasn't taking no for an answer. "I said stop the car." As the car pulled over to the dusty curb, Shaq stepped out, and the heat hit him like a brick wall. The kind of heat that soaks into your skin, makes the air feel heavy in your lungs. But that woman, she wasn't just standing there. She was moving, hustling, fighting for every naira she could earn. As Shaq approached her, his towering frame cast a long shadow over her petite figure. She paused, startled, her eyes widening in confusion. Imagine it, seeing a man like Big Shaq, nearly 7 feet tall, larger than life, walking toward you in the middle of a crowded street. But his voice was soft, gentle. "Sister, you okay?" She blinked, unsure of what to say. Then, like she'd done 100 times before, she forced a small smile and held out an orange. Oranges, ogre. Very sweet. 200 naira. But Shaq didn't take the orange. Instead, he asked, "Why are you out here like this? You no supposed to rest." For a moment, she hesitated. She wasn't sure if this was some kind of trick or maybe just another passerby, pretending to care. But something in his voice, the kindness, broke down her walls. Her name was Amara, and her story, it would break your heart. Amara had grown up in Abeokuta, a small town outside Lagos. Life hadn't been easy, but she had always believed in hard work. She met her husband, Chuka, when she was just 20. He was kind, hard-working, and full of dreams. They moved to Lagos with hopes of building a better life. Chuka got a job as a driver, and for a while things were good. They even managed to rent a small apartment in Surulere and welcome their first son, Obinna. But life had other plans. One rainy night, Chuka was driving home when a reckless truck driver lost control and slammed into his car. Chuka didn't survive. Just like that, Amara's world collapsed. No savings, no family nearby, just her and Obinna, and another baby. On the way, with nowhere else to turn, Amara began hawking oranges on the streets. Day after day, under the punishing Lagos sun, she walked miles to sell her goods. The money she made? Barely enough to buy rice and beans for a single meal. But she kept going for Obinna. For the unborn child in her belly. Can you imagine walking the streets pregnant under that brutal sun, with a child on your back? And still, she didn't beg. She didn't complain. She just worked. That kind of strength, it's rare. But what happened next? That changed everything. Shaq reached into his pocket, pulled out a stack of naira notes, and handed it to her. 500,000. Enough to cover months of expenses. Amara stared at the money, then at Shaq. Her lips trembled. Olga, I can't. Take this, it's too much. But Shaq wasn't done. He smiled and said, it's not too much. You deserve more? Shaq asked her to follow him to a nearby cafe. The street buzzed with curiosity. People whispered, trying to figure out what was happening. But inside that small cafe, Shaq wasn't just offering charity. He was offering a future. They sat down, and Shaq listened. Really listened. What's your dream, Amara? He asked, leaning forward. Her eyes filled with tears. She'd never been asked that before. I just want to open a small shop, she whispered, to sell fruits, vegetables, maybe rice and oil. I want my son to go to school. I want my baby to be born in a safe place. Shaq nodded, his eyes serious. We're gonna make that happen. Shaq called his team in Lagos. Within hours, they found a small shop in a busy part of the city. It wasn't fancy, but it was perfect. Shaq paid the rent for an entire year up front, but he didn't stop there. He handed her an additional $40,000 to stock the shop, hire workers, and set up a thriving business. He even made sure Amara had access to prenatal care, covering all her medical bills until her baby was delivered. Imagine that. One day, she's hawking oranges on the streets. The next, she's a proud business owner. News of Shaq's kindness spread like wildfire. The street where Amara once walked barefoot became the street where she owned a thriving store. People came not just for the groceries, but for the inspiration. She represented the woman who once sold oranges under the scorching sun. Now she was the heartbeat of her community. Shaq didn't do it for the cameras. In fact, most of the world wouldn't have known if it weren't for a local journalist who happened to be nearby and shared the story online. When asked about his actions, Shaq simply said, I saw someone who needed help, and I had the ability to help. It's that simple. This isn't just a story about Shaquille O'Neal. It's a story about Amara, about strength, about resilience, and about how a single act of kindness can change a life. So the next time you see someone struggling, remember this story, because sometimes it only takes one moment to change everything. What would you do if you had the power to change someone's life? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that remind us of the good in humanity.